I think music was always my thing. Like I've watched like Zakir Hussain do a Jugalbandi with Birju Maharaj, and he used to pay me 100 rupees for every song that I learnt on the keyboard. And now I laugh about it because I used to literally just play the notes of the keyboard, no left hand movement. At some point, classical music also teaches you a certain kind of discipline, because in the music business there's so much you can do which you might not end up being proud of.
Hi Raghav, welcome to Radio City Freedom.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Same here, same here, same here. Let's start off with, how did you start your music journey?
I think music has always been a part of my life, right from childhood. I was found on my sister's harmonium one day, and my parents were like, okay, let's give it a shot. I must have been like 2.5, 3 years old. Absolutely ridiculous age to start somebody off. But it just started with the Master Ji coming home and me sort of sitting down and listening to my sister sing. And then over time I was enrolled into those classes. Did that for about 6-7 years. But I think music was always my thing, right? Like right from an early age, singing in the school choir, just being really super tuned into it, loving my music teacher in school, for example. But that was always very Indian classical led. And then when I was, I think, 11, 12, I had like a bunch of guy friends who I was really close to, and we started sort of exploring. I think it started with Linkin Park, and then we started exploring other aspects, other bands, and got really heavily into rock and metal. And it just felt like this was our thing, while the world was listening to lots of pop music and all kinds of music. This was like our core community of sorts, and became a thing. And then one guy became a drummer, one guy became a guitarist, and I became the vocalist. And we used to perform in school. So that's how it actually started. So it's always been a thing, burning CDs and giving it to each other, sending music videos to each other through MSN Messenger and stuff like that has always been a thing. I still, when I look at my music career, sometimes a good reflecting point is that, am I making the 14-year-old who had this dream of sort of being on stage doing music, am I still making that 14-year-old little guy proud? Because in the music business there's so much you can do which you might not end up being proud of. So that's like literally my filter now. So it's always been a thing.
Right. Not a lot of people know that you have been trained in Hindustani classical music. I mean, talk us through your training. How did that happen, and how rigorous was that, or how did you enjoy it?
So I think it started with, at a very, very young age. I think my family is pretty musical, even though nobody understands anything of regard. They're just fans of music, right? So grew up to listening to a lot of Beatles, a lot of English Bryan Adams and stuff like that, but also lots of Jagjit Singh, Bhimsen Joshi and all of these artists. I remember my mom used to literally drag us out early in the morning. I grew up in Delhi, and there used to be like music in the park in the morning. So at 7 o'clock, all of these, like I've watched like Zakir Hussain do a Jugalbandi with Birju Maharaj at Sirifort Auditorium, or like in a lawn at 7 a.m. in the morning in a winter. So I think that's where the interest developed, where I would see these people who've like mastered their crafts. And I think my mom played a really significant role in constantly encouraging us. My dad used to send us like he got me a keyboard when I was a kid, and he used to pay me 100 rupees for every song that I learnt on the keyboard. And now I laugh about it because I used to literally just play the notes of the keyboard, no left hand movement. But that was the thing. So it was a pretty, like, I would say, like, indulgent childhood when it came to music. And I mean, I had a Hindustani classical teacher who made me take exams. It was always a thing that we had to practice because she was pretty strict about it. Later I got interested in the tabla, and I feel like that was so good because it really helped me even with my prog rock band when I was in college. But just getting a sense of rhythms at such an early age is super important. So I learned how to play the tabla for like 3 years. And that was really interesting because it really sets a basic framework that once you do music much later in life, you realize how much that basic grounding really helped. And I feel at some point classical music also teaches you a certain kind of discipline, right, in life, and patience. I feel 30 minutes of practice is almost like meditation, and once you get used to doing that, holding a note for as long as you can feels like such an easy job, but when you start doing it, you realize how hard it can be. And those are such important parts of like even songwriting and stuff like that. Like, how do you get into the studio and do exactly what you're being sort of imagined it to be, and more. How do you do jingle work, etc. Right? All of these skills, I feel like my childhood was a great sort of grounding exercise. Gave me lots of exposure, did lots of things even in school band, etc. Made it a sort of wholesome kind of an exercise by the end of it.
Okay, from there to your prog rock band.
Yeah.
How did that happen, and also how did you go to that kind of a music from a classical music background that you had, training wise?
I think it was just like I turned 11, hitting puberty, and I was like, okay, classical music is great, but can I do more? And I think the friends around me, like literally, one of my best friends who we started this band with was called Violent Asylum in school, and he's one of the biggest drummers in the country right now. Right, so it was a journey that we started, and I think that's the beauty of music. You like people around you, and you do stuff with them. So it started with that, and at that time, I was listening to a lot of rock, heavy metal, loved Lamb of God, Creed. I mean, Creed is not a heavy metal band, but grew up listening to Metallica, right, Creed, and all of these bands. I went out right after school, went and watched Lamb of God in Bangalore. It was like a dream come true. GIR used to happen. Right. So I think the culture in Delhi also at that time was like RSJ used to do club nights. At 14, I sneaked into a bar to watch this metal band play, and it was like my dream come true to see a mosh pit in a bar. Right, so those are things that excited me. The community aspect of it really excited me about the metal scene in general. Everybody wearing black and showing up, and being turned away from bars because you're not old enough, but messaging the vocalist to get us in through the kitchen. All that has been done, and that's how it happened. But that time it was just a thing we really enjoyed. I remember Parikrama came to my school in class 11, and there had to be a selection of a school band that was going to open for them, and we had our pre-boards just before that, and we were just spending time playing music and learning up these covers and stuff like that, and those videos are hilarious. I still have some of them. So that's how it started, singing other people's music. And when I was in college, I gave a bunch of music auditions. Right, in DU there's a whole culture of ECA, extracurricular activities, and that getting you in. So I gave a bunch of auditions to these colleges, and clearly there are other guitarists, drummers, etc. who are part of it. And when I joined Stevens in Delhi back in 2010, damn, I'm old, that's when I met these other 4 musicians who we then made into a band, and we called it the Uncertainty Principle. And that's when the knack of songwriting started for me, essentially, even though it was a very different genre. I'm a storyteller. I still think my writing is something I'm really proud of. For me as an artist, I still always wanted to do original music. There are so many things in the industry that should be so easy to understand, but they take you years to figure out, oh man, this is what I was beating my head against. You can be a musician who really wants to just focus on their music and build that, and that's completely fine. Nobody is discounting that. So you can't disappear for 6 months and expect that same fan to feel as strongly about you. They might feel the same way about your music,